Is Brad Treliving's too much vanilla criticism of the Toronto Maple Leafs a genuine call for internal accountability? Or is it a desperate smokescreen to avoid making the obvious, necessary trade for a player like Rasmus Andersson? A move that could actually cure this team's disastrous defensive woes and inject a bite and identity they so clearly lack? All right, folks, let's cut through the corporate speak and get to the heart of the matter. Toronto Maple Leafs general manager Brad Treliving faced the media today, November 18th, 2025, and delivered a scathing, yet strangely contradictory, assessment of his own team's identity. His words: "There's been too much vanilla." With an ugly 8-9-2 record and a 5-game losing streak, the Leafs are in crisis. Yet, Treliving's official message was one of patience, denying any immediate panic trades. But let's be real. Behind the scenes, the pressure to acquire an impact defenseman like Rasmus Andersson from the Calgary Flames has never been higher. This isn't just about a losing streak. It's about a fundamental flaw in the team's construction, a lack of identity, and a defensive disaster that patience simply won't fix. Treliving's declaration that you're not trading your way out of problems is, frankly, a convenient narrative. With the team boasting the second worst goals against average in the NHL at 3.79, inaction is not a viable long-term option. This isn't a minor slump. This is a systemic breakdown. You can talk about internal solutions all you want, but when your team is bleeding goals at that rate, and your general manager is publicly calling them vanilla, it's a clear admission that the current recipe isn't working. And if the ingredients aren't working, you either change the chef or you change the ingredients. Treliving just backed his chef, Craig Berube, which means the spotlight is now squarely on the players and by extension, the roster Treliving himself assembled. The term vanilla used by Treliving is a direct accusation of the team's lack of flavor, intensity, and identity. The team has been inconsistent, disconnected, and fragile in its own zone. This isn't just about losing. It's about how they're losing. They're being outworked, outmuscled, and outsmarted defensively. They lack the bite that Berube demands, the physical presence that makes opponents dread playing against them. This isn't a team that looks like it's ready to compete for a Stanley Cup. It looks like a team that's lost its way. Here's my strong opinion, and it's a direct contradiction to Treliving's public stance. Treliving says patience is inactivity, but his refusal to make a panic trade contradicts reality on the ice. The Leafs' defense is a mess. They've lost their physical identity. To say the solution will come from within is to ignore that the current roster has already proven incapable of defending. This team needs a personality transplant, and Rasmus Andersson is a compatible donor who is available on the market. Despite the public denial of big changes, the name of Rasmus Andersson continues to circulate intensely. His acquisition would directly address the vanilla criticism. Andersson plays with a bite and defensive competence that Toronto lacks. He's a right-shot defenseman, a legitimate top-four player, and he brings a physical edge that would immediately change the dynamic on Toronto's blue line. He's exactly the kind of player Craig Berube wants in his system, a hard-nosed, two-way defender who can shut down opponents and move the puck effectively. This isn't a panic trade. It's a necessary correction to a roster that was poorly constructed on the blue line. The obstacle, of course, is the price. The Flames would demand premium assets, likely including a top prospect like Auston, something Treliving has been hesitant to move. But if the season continues to sink and the defense continues to bleed goals, Treliving's patience will have to give way to survival. You can't preach patience when your team is spiraling out of control and your general manager is publicly shaming them for being vanilla. At some point, words aren't enough. Action is required. And the action required here is a significant defensive upgrade. Treliving was emphatic in his support for Coach Craig Berube. Craig didn't become a bad coach overnight. The blame was placed entirely on the players. The GM demanded that they dig in. This is the last chance of this core. If the response to the vanilla comment is an immediate change in attitude and performance, management will have the perfect justification to ignore its own no-panic rule and pull the trigger on a blockbuster trade. And if that blockbuster trade involves Rasmus Andersson, it won't be a panic move. It will be a calculated decision to save a season that is rapidly slipping away. Brad Trailerving asked for patience, but he described a team that needs urgent surgery. The vanilla Leafs defense isn't going to magically improve. The acquisition of an elite defenseman like Rasmus Andersson isn't a quick fix. It's the necessary correction for a roster that was poorly constructed on the blue line. This isn't about making a trade for the sake of making a trade. It's about making the right trade for the right player to address a glaring, undeniable weakness. The time for vanilla is over. The time for a bite is now. What do you think, Leafs Nation? Is Brad Treliving's vanilla criticism a fair assessment of the team's identity? Do you believe his public stance of no panic trades? Or do you think he's secretly working to acquire a player like Rasmus Andersson? And if the season continues to spiral, should Treliving sacrifice a top prospect like Easton Cowan to bring the defensive bite this team desperately needs? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear all your perspectives on this critical moment for the Maple Leafs. And if you want to stay on top of every trade rumor, every organizational critique, and every breaking news story as the NHL season unfolds, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. We'll be here breaking down every significant development, separating public statements from behind-the-scenes realities, and you won't want to miss a single update as we continue to chase that ultimate prize,